I woke up grinning like an idiot, sun burning through the blinds in our San Diego apartment. The sheets still smelled like Jenna's coconut lotion from Kauai. 16 days married, and I swore I'd finally cracked it. 34 years old, beautiful wife, music label finally clicking. I felt stupid happy, the kind where you want to high-five the mirror. I brewed a double shot, tied a clean Windsor knot, and slid into my favorite pale blue button-down. We'd just signed a new artist, young singer from Pasadena with a killer demo. If the rollout landed, North Star Audio was about to punch way above our weight. I felt it in my chest, charged, ready, not nervous, focused. I tossed my keys in the passenger seat, fired up the Audi S7, and took the 163 like it was made just for me. Radio up, tapping the wheel, sun in my face. Traffic barely bothering me. Even the brake lights looked friendly that morning. Quick note. Before we start, share in the comments. How's your day going and where are you joining from? And let's continue. Phone lit up halfway to the office. Felix Marino, wedding photographer. I figured he was calling to say proofs were done. He always joked around, opened loud with Mr. Handsome or something. But not that time. His voice came tight, low. Graham, I need you at my studio, now. Is everything okay? I asked. Did something happen to the files? He didn't answer that, just a pause. I can't carry this alone. Please, just come. My stomach turned. Felix never talked like that. I asked again, same result. No details, just him sounding like he hadn't slept in a week. I took the next exit off Richmond, turned fast onto Upas, then pushed down toward North Park like my brakes didn't matter. Felix met me at the door, pale as chalk, hands stuffed in his pockets, eyes scanning the street like someone followed him. He locked the door behind us, pulled the curtains in the back, and poured water with hands that couldn't stop shaking. He opened our wedding folder, beautiful shots, rings, Jenna walking the aisle, us dancing while people clapped. Then he scrolled to a file with a red tag I hadn't seen before. You need to sit, he said. I'm sorry, man. Pixels loaded slow, looked like a hallway, then sharpened fast. And that's when my whole world slid off the rails. Jenna, my wife, 31, kissing my older brother Brent like they were alone in their own world. Not a cheek kiss, not a quick slip-up. This was full on, her hands behind his neck, his fingers tight at her waist, both their eyes shut like they'd done it 100 times. I couldn't move. Felix kept talking, said it was a side hallway near the reception, camera test shot, reflex shutter, that he froze when he saw what he caught, said he didn't know what to do with it. I didn't respond. I just stared at the screen, jaw clenched, heartbeat in my throat, every dumb sunset photo from Kauai catching fire in my mind. I stood up without a word, grabbed my keys, and walked out the door. I left Felix's studio like it was nothing, coffee in hand, buttoned up calm, but my jaw hurt from clenching. I drove to North Star on autopilot, same route I'd taken for years, but everything looked unfamiliar. When I sat down at my desk, I didn't touch my mouse. I just stared at the blinking cursor on a blank screen, like maybe it could explain how my life blew apart in one frame. The team buzzed outside the glass. I could hear voices, laughing, phones ringing, something about a licensing call. It all felt like background noise in someone else's day. On paper, North Star was mine, 70% equity, full control of creative. But Dad held 20%. Legacy investor with 2 board seats he never let me forget about. Brent had 5, some throwaway chunk for business development, which mostly meant glad handing during showcases. He also had limited signatory rights, which I used to shrug off. Mom managed bookkeeping approvals part-time, just to keep it in the family. It was supposed to be clean. All it really did was leave too many hands near the switch. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. I started thinking about all the little moments I'd brushed aside, like Jenna flipping her phone screen down the second I walked into the room. She always smiled and said it was just clients in Asia, different time zones, nothing to worry about. I believed her because I wanted to. There was that cookout at my parents' place in Mission Hills. Brent and Jenna were laughing too hard at something, only they seemed to understand. It lingered longer than it should have. I chalked it up to them getting close as family. That's what I told myself. That's what I needed to believe. Brent had this habit of disappearing to help with dishes after dinner, and Jenna always followed without anyone asking. I stayed back with Dad, talking budgets and licensing deals, missing the part where my fiancé kept vanishing with my brother. A week before the wedding, Jenna skipped her dress fitting, said a hot lead came through, and she needed to be in Santa Monica last minute. Brent called out the same day, said he had errands. No one thought it was odd, including me, and that's what angered me the most. I grabbed my phone and walked into the soundproof conference room, called the only person I trusted with dirt, Derek Voss. Old college buddy, ex-army, now works private. He's seen the worst of people and doesn't flinch. When he picked up, I told him everything. My voice was low. My hands were ice. He didn't waste time with sympathy, just said, "Give me a week. I'll pull schedules, scrape socials, check travel logs, and I won't leave footprints. But if you're right, it's gonna hurt." After I hung up, I dialed a security outfit we've used for tour logistics. Good guys, discreet. I told them I wanted the works. Motion-triggered cameras, micro lenses, real-time mobile alerts. No audio, just crisp video, and nothing left to chance. They showed up that same day just after noon while Jenna was out getting her nails done. Clean install, one in the living room, one in the bedroom. They tested the network on a dummy feed and nodded like medics leaving a scene. You'll get alerts within seconds, no delay, all encrypted. After they left, I sat alone, watching my own living room from my office. It didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a stage. The throw pillows she picked out at Target, the little orchid plant on the coffee table, props now. Set dressing for whatever truth was about to walk in. That night, she came home smiling, wrapped her arms around me like nothing had shifted. She made penne, poured wine, asked how the studio was going. I played it straight. "Hey," I said, "what happened the week before the wedding? You were off the grid a little." She blinked once, smiled tight. "Oh, that was just work stuff. Remember that beauty brand I told you about? They wanted a rush deck. I pulled a double. Why?" "No reason," I said, holding eye contact long enough to watch her shift. She changed the subject before I could follow up. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling fan cutting slow shadows above me, hands behind my head, counting every damn red flag I'd ignored. I stopped telling myself stories. Morning came. I kissed her cheek like always, told her I had an early meeting downtown, drove to the office, closed the door behind me. Set my phone in the middle of the desk, face up, volume on high. I wasn't asking questions anymore. I was waiting for proof. The alert came just after noon. Motion detected in the bedroom, live preview auto-loading. First Jenna, then Brent slipping in behind her. No audio, just the frame I couldn't ignore. I grabbed my keys, left without locking the office, and drove home on muscle memory, every light a dare. Brent stood there, shirt halfway on, blood dripping from his nose, and still had the nerve to smirk at me like I was the one out of line. He wiped it with the back of his wrist, looked around like maybe the moment would pass, like I'd just cool off and we'd pretend this never happened. "Seriously?" he said. "You broke into your own house to play hero?" I didn't answer, couldn't. My chest felt like it was caving in. Jenna was off to the side, clinging to a pillow like it meant anything now. Her eyes were glassy, but not from shame, more like she was mad we'd gotten caught in daylight. She spoke first. "You weren't here. I was alone in this house most nights while you built your little empire." That hit harder than the video. I'd expected lies or silence, maybe tears. But the way she framed it, like I was the villain for trying to build something, made my skin crawl. "You mean our house," I snapped. "The one you just turned into a motel with my brother." Brent snorted. "Come on, man, it's not like that." "Then tell me what it is like," I said, stepping in. "Tell me how long this has been going on. Was it before we got engaged, or did you two just get nostalgic at the wedding rehearsal?" They didn't answer. Jenna looked at Brent. Brent looked at the floor. And that pause told me everything I hadn't wanted to believe. "You're both disgusting," I said, voice cracking. "I hope the lies were worth it." Jenna's face hardened. "You were never in this with me, Graham. Not really. You were always married to that studio first. And you were always too close to Brent," I said. I just didn't want to admit it. Brent finally raised his eyes. "Look, love gets messy. You're not the first guy to get blindsided. You'll survive." It sounded like a rehearsed quote, polished, practiced, like he'd said it before, or planned to. You practiced that line in the mirror? I asked. Did Dad help with it? Or did you two just compare notes between hookups? He clenched his jaw but didn't move. Jenna took a shaky breath, like she might try one more excuse. You got clingy, she said, voice soft. You were too much, always in control, always planning everything. I couldn't breathe. I stared at her like she'd just recited a script. My chest throbbed. I asked you if I looked like a fool. Say it. Neither of them said a word, but they didn't need to. Brent gave her a look, just a quick glance. But it was there, a flicker of calculation. Like they still thought they could twist this into something survivable, maybe even salvageable. That was the last straw. I backed away, hands shaking, vision tunneling. My voice felt like it didn't belong to me anymore. I'm leaving before I do something I can't undo. Brent raised a brow like he didn't believe me. Jenna flinched. I stepped toward the door and didn't look back, not even when she said my name like it still held weight. I drove without music, without headlights for the first mile. My fists wouldn't unclench around the wheel. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, but I knew something had snapped. Whatever came next, there was no turning around. I woke up stiff in that motel bed, the denim biting into my waist, and for a second, I had no idea where I was. Then the neon buzz from the window reminded me. I rolled out slow, splashed water on my face in a sink that groaned like it hated being used, and stared at myself in the mirror. My eyes looked older, harder. The thought that hit me was simple and loud. I'm not done. I grabbed my keys and walked out before I talked myself into lying low. I wasn't hiding, not from them, not from anyone. I drove through Mission Hills with the windows cracked, the cool morning air burning my lungs awake. That neighborhood always looked polished, bougainvillea climbing stucco walls, trimmed palms swaying like they knew they were expensive. My parents' house sat at the top of a gentle slope, beige and proud. I pulled up to the curb, killed the engine, and sat there one beat longer than I meant to. I still wanted a hug. I hated that I wanted it. Mom opened the door before I even knocked. Diane always carried that teacher calm, the kind that made kids sit straighter. She looked at my face and frowned, but she didn't pull me in. Dad muted the football game and just stared at me like noise had walked into his clean house. I told them everything. Every detail, from Felix's photo to the living room scene that still felt glued behind my eyes. I expected something human from them. Shock, anger, a curse, a hand on my shoulder. Anything. Instead, Dad rubbed his jaw and said, "This is a private matter, son. Dignity comes from handling things quietly. A man has to hold the line and not give the neighborhood something to talk about." My jaw throbbed from clenching. "They blew up my marriage," I said. "And you're worried about gossip?" Mom stepped in like she wanted to smooth the edges. "Sweetheart, think of the family name. Think of North Star. You need to find a way to forgive Brent. He made a mistake, but he's still your brother." Hearing that felt like being pushed back in time. I wasn't 34 anymore. I was 12, standing barefoot on the patio while Dad coached Brent through deal-making over lemonade, telling me to let them focus. My music trophies had been shoved behind Brent's soccer medals for years. Apparently that theme never left. I walked farther into the living room, the one where I'd unboxed my first sampler as a teenager while Mom took pictures. I could still smell the old lemon polish they used every Saturday. That room had felt like home. Now it felt like a bank. Everything transactional, everything with a price. When North Star finally turned real money, I said, I paid for the roof repair. I paid Dad's bridge loan. I bought the new computers for Mom's bookkeeping setup. And you're still defending him? Dad gave me that level stare he used whenever he wanted to win a point without raising his voice. Brent brings Polish to the brand. You bring creativity. Families work when each person knows their lane. I almost laughed because the truth hit me so fast it left a sting. They didn't see me as their son. Not really. I was useful. I made money, solved problems, lifted the family image. Brent was the golden one. Jenna had been a convenient extension of him. I suddenly felt like I'd wandered into a meeting I wasn't invited to. "You want me to make it go away," I said. "I want you to say my name like it matters." No one answered. We just stood there staring at the rug like the pattern might save us. I turned before they could find another line to feed me. I didn't hug either of them. I didn't promise anything. I walked out, back into the too bright daylight, and my legs carried me to the car before my brain caught up. The drive blurred by until the street names stopped meaning anything. I pulled into a motel off El Cajon, the one with the faded vacancy sign that buzzed non-stop. Inside, the room smelled like stale smoke and old furniture. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling plaster swirling like storm clouds. A couple next door argued through thin walls, their voices leaking into mine. I didn't move. My phone lit up with Jenna's long messages, paragraph after paragraph, about mistakes, love, fate, and fixing us. I blocked her. Brent called twice and left a voicemail saying I was overreacting. My hands shook from how hard I gripped the phone. Sleep finally hit me around dawn, and when I woke in my jeans again, stiff and aching, that same thought rose up stronger than before. I'm not done. I kept seeing my dad's face at that table, relaxed, in control, like this was just another quarterly call. That was what finally pulled the sadness out of me. Not the betrayal itself, but the way they'd treated it like business, like I was a variable, not a person. The next afternoon, Derek texted, "Meet. No fluff, just that." We linked up at an old bar we used to hit after midterms. Still smelled like varnish and fryer oil. The booth had a cracked seat. The jukebox blinked but didn't play. Nobody cared enough to eavesdrop. He opened his laptop without saying anything and slid it my way. The screen lit up to a view I knew instantly. My parents' living room. That security system had been my idea years ago after their neighbor got robbed. I'd helped set it up, even held the admin login on an old doc buried in my drive. Derek had found it. The video had no audio, but the image was sharp. Mom, Dad, Brent, and Jenna all seated like it was a board meeting. Dad at the head, finger tapping the arm of the chair like he always did when he wanted people to listen. Derek leaned in. Watch all of it. I did. My father started with the affair, said it would complicate the timeline, told Brent to scrub any trace of the money they had shifted out of North Star. My name didn't come up with emotion. It came up like a risk factor. Mom looked shaken, but she was all in. Told them to delete emails, clear chains, keep things quiet. Jenna said she couldn't get me to sign anything for a while, so they'd need another way in. Then Dad said it. "I'll backdate the approvals. We'll say Graham signed off months ago." Like it was just paperwork, not my life. Brent listed off banks and friendly accounts like he was ordering lunch. It wasn't panic, it was process. I didn't say anything for a full minute, just stared at the screen while something in my chest turned cold. I wasn't just the one cheated on. I was the target, the cleanup job, the way out. Derek slid a manila folder across the table. Inside was a preliminary financial trace, $382,000 spread across internal loans, all unreported. Dates lined up with Brent's errands and Jenna's vendor meetings. The patterns matched. It was a bleed, not a leak. "We go slow," Derek said, tapping the paper. "Clean, no rush moves. Get legal air cover." "No," I said. "We go fast and legal. If this burns, I want it to burn clean." First call I made was to Marcia Keaton, corporate auditor, no patience, reputation for breaking egos. She didn't flinch when I told her what I needed. "I'll need full access to books, contracts, and vendor records," she said. "Give me 2 days to draw a working map." Her voice didn't rise, didn't fall, just clean-cut precision, the kind you hear in courtrooms. Second call was to Caleb Dunn, business attorney we'd used for one licensing mess years back. This time I asked for full representation, no gray areas. He didn't waste time. "First thing," he said, "lock your systems, change every password, lock financials, no more face-to-face. Anything else goes through me or gets recorded." Back at the motel, I took no chances. I made 3 full backups, one on an encrypted cloud, one on a drive locked in the room's bolted down safe, and one tiny USB I strung onto a chain and wore around my neck. It felt stupid, but it helped me sleep. I lay in bed that night staring at the ceiling, replaying the video. My dad, calm as Sunday service, planning how to gut what I built. Brent, nodding like he earned something. Jenna, acting like paperwork was harder than cheating. I stopped feeling anything soft. And for the first time in days, I didn't feel broken. I felt ready. Marcia's audit came in a day early, tight and brutal. pages of vendor names that didn't exist, invoices approved after midnight with signatures that didn't match my own, and one email from my mother at 9:14 p.m. telling her assistant to purge all March correspondence before EOD. The kind of casual line that gets people indicted. The vendor payments bled toward Brent's accounts like dye and water. On the surface, it all looked plain, but the longer you stared, the uglier it got. Caleb skimmed it all and said the words out loud, one by one. Embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy, forgery. Then he looked at me and said, "No phone calls, no second chances. If we move hard." I printed it all, clean folders, labeled in black marker like a courtroom prop list. I dumped the footage onto a fresh drive and dropped everything into my backpack. Then I sent one text to the family group chat. Everyone at Mom and Dad's at 7. Important. Jenna's reply came first. "Can we talk first? Just us?" Brent was blunt. "What's this about?" Dad followed with, "Fine." And Mom, ever the host, added, "I'll make tea." I didn't respond to any of it. At 7:02, I walked into the house with no smile and a bag over one shoulder. Dad tried to give me his usual slow nod, like we were about to have a reasonable discussion. Mom looked like she was mid-prayer. Brent took up the couch like it owed him rent. Jenna looked like she hadn't slept, which almost made her look honest. Almost. I didn't sit. I set the laptop on the coffee table, mirrored it to the living room TV, and stood behind the screen like a prosecutor. "I know, all of it. Watch." I clicked play. We started with the numbers, bank records, timelines, transactions that had no business existing. I showed Brent on camera walking out of 3 different branches with the same leather case. I showed the email where Dad called me too trusting and said Brent should let Jenna handle him until it's done. Then came Marcia's slides, side-by-sides of my actual signature next to forged ones. Stamped approvals on ghost vendors that routed back to a P.O. box linked to one of Brent's old college buddies. And Diane, my mother, signed off on every third payment like she was punching a time clock. No hesitation, no gaps. Just complicit. Finally, I dropped the video clip on them. The living room recording Derek had found. No audio, just the 4 of them plotting like a startup launch. You didn't need words. The expressions told the whole story. When the screen went black, the silence hit harder than anything I could have said. Dad tried first. "This is a fabrication, deepfake or something." Mom jumped in. "We were trying to protect the family, the business. You have to see the bigger picture." Brent sat forward, confident enough to still smile. "It was always meant to be temporary, just to move some things around, that's all." And Jenna, because she couldn't help herself, dropped to her knees and grabbed my pant leg. "I didn't want it to go this far. I was scared. I still love you." I stepped back like she burned, looked each of them in the face and said, "There's no more talking. I'm filing. Everything that matters is already locked down. North Star isn't yours to carve up." Nobody spoke, not Brent, not my parents. Not the woman who wore my ring while sleeping with my brother and forging my name. I walked out without a backward glance. My shoes hit the porch with purpose. For the first time in weeks, I felt lighter. Because now, it wasn't about doubt. It was about action. The next morning, Caleb walked into the courthouse and filed everything. By lunch, we had a freeze order locked across every account tied to Brent, my parents, and Jenna. Search warrants sat waiting for a judge's signature. The wheels weren't just turning, they were grinding. I sat in a cafe across from the Hall of Justice, hands around a black coffee, watching steam rise and curl like smoke from something finally burning out. It was the first time in over a week I felt my shoulders drop even an inch. North Star wasn't huge, but we'd made noise. 2 decent radio singles, a festival slot in Temecula, and my last panel at a Southern California music conference had drawn decent press. So, when the filings went public, our names didn't just float. They flashed. By 2 p.m., the Union Tribune had a piece on the investigation. By 4, a gossip site in L.A. ran a headline that made me want to throw my phone. Brother, bride, and the heist of North Star. I turned the screen face down and left it there. They came out swinging fast. A Beverly Hills PR firm issued a statement calling me power-hungry and disloyal. said I was weaponizing personal drama to seize full control of the company. They spun my silence into guilt, said I'd never been transparent, that I was isolating family in pursuit of individual gain. It was quite a script. Cameras showed up outside our Kearney Mesa building by the next morning. Reporters leaning over hedges, trying to shout questions through the glass. My staff started walking in with their heads down, unsure if they should smile at me or keep quiet. I called an all-hands meeting and told them exactly what I needed. Keep making music. The noise out there isn't our story. This place is. Let me deal with the fire. That night, I stepped out of the elevator at the motel and nearly walked into Jenna. She was posted near the vending machine, arms crossed, eyes raw. The moment she saw me, she started talking like a dam broke. I didn't mean for any of it to happen like this, she said, voice cracking. Your parents, they push so hard. I didn't know where the line was anymore. I'll talk to the DA if you need me to. Just, can we please talk? I stared at the worn carpet under her feet. There was a faded red swirl running through the center like a burn mark. Somewhere, a bell dinged. I stepped around her without a word and pushed through the front door. The whoosh of it closing behind me felt final. Search teams hit Brent's office the next morning. One of the managers, quiet guy who handled routing paperwork, texted me that Brent had turned gray in front of everyone. I didn't smile. I didn't feel joy. I felt confirmation. That night, Derek sent a one-line message at 10:03. They're scrambling, but the overlaps hold. I read it twice. That phrase hit different. The overlaps hold. Like a beat I could finally count on. I slept 4 hours straight. No dreams, no ceiling fan, spinning lies, just rest. Next morning, Caleb looked me dead in the eye and said, "Trial's going to be ugly." I shrugged. Ugly already sat on my couch and drank my wine. I'm not scared of it anymore. We circled a court date and got to work, grinding case prep like a band too broke to cancel the gig. 8 months later, after motions, continuances, witness lists, prep calls, and a calendar that taught me to breathe between deadlines, the trial date finally landed. No more waiting, no more building pressure. It was here. The courthouse felt colder than it should have. Artificial air pumping through tall, dusty vents. Outside, camera flashes popped like lightning. Reporters shouted names through the metal barricades. I wore a black suit I'd only ever used for funerals. Felt right enough. Inside, their legal team came out swinging. Family misunderstanding, complex accounting, legitimate business transfers. Their lead counsel handed out binders thick enough to look serious, but hollow if you flipped the pages. I watched Brent try to sit straight, jaw tight, but a vein in his neck gave him away every time the jury glanced over. Caleb didn't sprint. He didn't need to. He opened slow and methodical. Chain of custody on the financial records, digital signatures that didn't match mine, timestamps that contradicted their timeline, no tricks, just steady facts. The jury didn't blink. Pens scratched paper like they already saw the ending. We leaned on the basics, bank records, signed approvals, forged documents. The video from my parents' living room wasn't the spine, just the mirror. A reminder that it wasn't just about numbers. It was about people who planned it all with clean hands. Then the meeting video played. My father's voice echoed through the courtroom. Before Graham triggers an audit. The room went still. Even their lead attorney looked down at his notes like he didn't want to hear the rest. Marcia stepped up next. Straight posture, calm tone, slides in order. She showed the exact amounts tied to Brent's branch visits. She matched vendor payments to fake entities and linked those back to a storage lease in his friend's name. Brent kept blinking fast, like he could erase the evidence if he stared hard enough. Felix took the stand after that. He wore a jacket 2 sizes too big and never once looked up. When Caleb asked about the photo, Felix's voice shook. He said, "I didn't sleep after I saw it. I thought maybe it wasn't real, but it was." I believed him. I hadn't slept either. Derek followed with the timeline. Flights, hotels, calendar overlaps. It wasn't a smoking gun. It was a pattern so loud it screamed. The jury saw it. Everyone did. Their team tried to spin a counter, brought in a witness who called me controlling, cold, possessive. Caleb didn't flinch. Pulled up studio logs, time-stamped emails, even building badge data. showed I was tracking mixes and edits while I was supposedly hovering at home. Their witness looked like he wanted to disappear. When we rested, the courtroom felt thinner, like the oxygen had been pulled out. I looked at Brent. His posture collapsed in slow motion, like mine had the day I left my parents' house. His shoulders curled, and for the first time, I saw him as small. The judge didn't waste time. Findings came clear and sharp: altered signatures, unauthorized transfers, intent to defraud. Conspiracy established. The gavel hit hard, final. Sentencing didn't flinch. My father got 7 years. Brent got 5. Jenna, 2, suspended, with restitution and fines. My mother got slapped with administrative penalties and ordered to repay funds tied to fraudulent approvals. The judge called it a coordinated breach of trust spanning over 1 year. I didn't feel joy. I felt air. North Star was ruled mine, 100%. No more voting shares. No more board seats I didn't control. Assets were clawed back where they could be. Outside the courthouse, reporters stretched mics at me like fishing poles. One asked if I wanted revenge. I just said, justice was necessary. That was it. That night, I sat alone in my place, lights off, feet up, nothing playing, nothing buzzing, no noise, no voices, just quiet. For the first time in a year, I let it stay that way. After the sentencing, I packed up the motel in under an hour, moved into a 2-bedroom rental near Sunset Cliffs. Quiet street, no shared walls, enough distance from the noise. I didn't bring much: a mattress, my laptop, a duffel bag. I didn't want anything that reminded me of the old house. Every morning, I ran the same 3 streets on a loop until the sweat soaked through my shirt and my head went blank. Then I'd shower, hit the office, and pour every ounce of energy into the thing that never lied to me: the work. At North Star, I cut ties fast. Anyone who'd cozied up to Brent, kissed the ring to keep their seat, I let them go. I hired 2 producers in their 20s with no ego and 1 operations lead who talked slow and listened better. I didn't want superstars. I wanted people who gave a damn. We pushed a debut EP from a local folk singer named Zoe. Soft voice, big thoughts, wrote like her diary mattered. It didn't chart, but it turned heads, and that was enough. People called it a reset. I didn't call it anything. I just kept going. The press circled back fast. Reporters who'd once camped outside the courthouse now pitched resilient story angles like they were doing me a favor. I said no to every single one. I didn't want a headline. I wanted a schedule, a routine, something I could measure. Money steadied. Then it grew, slowly but clean. A San Diego podcast gave me a shout-out. The guy who kept the music loud when life tried to shut it off. I laughed out loud in the car when I heard that. First real laugh in months. Then came the envelope. No return address, just 2 federal postmarks, and my full name spelled perfectly. Inside were 2 inmate request forms, one from Dad, one from Brent. Both wanted to talk. I let the papers sit on my desk for 3 days. Not because I didn't know what to do, because I knew exactly what it would cost. I showed up anyway. Prison glass, metal stools, wired phones. Brent came first. No smirk. Just dark circles and a stare that didn't know where to land. He said, sorry, and for the first time in his life, I think he meant it. Dad's hair had gone bone white. His voice was quieter, not weak, but smaller. He said he was proud of what I built, that it should have been mine all along. I don't need your blessing now, I told him. I lived too long chasing it. I don't want it anymore. Mom was in the corner, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. I didn't speak to her. I hung up the phone and stood. There was no fire left in me, no need to make them hurt. I wasn't angry. I was just done. Back at the office, I signed a lease on a second room in the building. Cheaper, stripped down, perfect for turning into a songwriter's lounge. When I told the team, they clapped like we'd just hit a billboard spot. That night, I slept with the windows cracked, ocean air sliding in. The dreams finally left the courtroom behind. A year after the sentencing, I sold North Star to a quiet investor out of Portland. I cashed out with enough to breathe without watching every number. No press release. No interviews. Just a signature and a silent ride up the coast, letting San Diego shrink behind me with more relief than regret. I landed in Pacific Grove, found a cedar-sided place near the water, Wraparound porch, salt air, fog horns in the morning. It felt like the opposite of what I came from, which was the point. The house needed paint. The roof groaned, but it was mine, and it didn't come with ghosts. I opened a small cafe a block from the cliffs. Nothing fancy. Just a secondhand espresso machine, a corner stage, and a 2-room demo nook in the back with foam on the walls. I painted the sign by hand, play for coffee. That was the deal. At first it was dead on weekday afternoons. Then a high school kid with a beat-up Guild guitar showed up. Then a tech guy who sang sad songs on his lunch break. Then a retired nurse who sang Patsy Cline on Thursdays. Nobody asked for money, just space. I met Talia Brooks on a rainy morning in November. She wore a paint-stained hoodie, jeans with holes, and a knit cap pulled low. She ordered peppermint tea and asked for the quiet table by the window, like she was requesting sanctuary. When I brought it over, she said, "Thanks, you just saved my morning." We talked about tide charts and the way rain smells in old wood. She never asked what I did before. I never asked why she painted the same rocky cove from 5 different angles. We started walking at dusk, hands in pockets. Silence easy between us. Some nights I'd play the upright while she sat cross-legged with her sketchbook, head tilted, not saying a word. A year in, we got married barefoot on the sand. 6 people came, no microphones. Just my nephew holding up a phone for music and the gulls arguing in the background. It didn't need to be bigger than that. It fit who we were. People still ask what happened back then. I don't give them the saga. I just say this. Some people use love like a key. Others use it like a lock. Learn the difference early. If you're where I was, hurt, mad, hollow, walk forward with your eyes open and your phone down. Build something small that belongs to you. Then wait for someone kind who wants to stand in it with you. Most nights, the last set at the cafe ends with a soft guitar. I mop the floor slow, flip the chairs, and let the espresso machine hum itself quiet. Then I turn the sign to closed, step out onto the porch, and take a breath that tastes like salt and coffee. I still don't like the word journey, but I know I picked the right road. Before you head out, let me ask you something real. When trust shatters in your life, do you walk away or try to rebuild? And why? Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Even something as simple as "great story" means a lot to me.